Hey guys, I'm LaKrista with Unscripted, where we're breaking the system, finding root causes, and exposing the lies you've been prescribed. Let's jump in. Welcome back to Unscripted. I'm LaKrista, and I'm here today with Makena Peck. She is a mom here in Oklahoma. Another story of a medical kidnapping, and so she is going to start from the beginning and tell us the story. Her little boy was 4 when he was initially diagnosed with cancer, and I'll let you kind of start from the beginning. And y'all were on vacation, right?
Yeah.
When this happened? I was like, that's what the worst part.
Yeah, it was actually a surprise Christmas vacation. So I actually just popped into my mom's kitchen one day and was like, we're here. And I was about 8.5 months pregnant as well.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that.
Yeah, I was very pregnant, and I thought
Probably shouldn't have traveled that far.
Yeah. And we had lived in a camper for 4 years, so we traveled all over. So it wasn't, as big of a deal for me because I was used to packing and going all the time. But
You're kind of already packed.
yeah,
If you live in a camper, you just...
just ready to go. Yeah. And then so I thought we had the stomach bug because his little brother was sick and I didn't feel well. We were all throwing up, and then with Keaton, he started getting red and purple dots all over his stomach. And me and my mom kind of thought, oh, maybe it's just a virus because, you could get a rash.
Mm-hmm.
But then he was sleeping a lot, and I kind of just thought, oh, well, we've been traveling to Oklahoma to see family, to Minnesota. But I think, it definitely should have been a red flag that he would go lay down and fall asleep all by himself. Looking back, I just thought he was tired.
How long did that go on?
Probably about a week. And he would fall asleep places. Like if we were at a basketball game for my sister, he would fall asleep, which should have been odd to me. But, traveling, you just think they're exhausted and seeing all the family. But then his lymph nodes got swollen in his neck. And that's whenever I took him to the doctor, the pediatrician. And his stomach was distended, which I didn't really notice, but other people had noticed. And we went to the pediatrician, and his white blood count was 895,000. So they were, expecting it to be more around like 11,000 at 4 years old, and we couldn't.
That's astronomically high.
Yeah, and I didn't really, that didn't compute for me yet, and because I've never had to get blood tests on a kid before, just, unless they're a newborn, but they couldn't get a glucose reading. So they were kind of thinking it was a machine error because it was so high. And so that's when, we had the choice to either call an ambulance and go down to the children's hospital about 45 minutes away in Minneapolis. And so we chose that because, there was a blizzard out. And then by that time, he couldn't stay awake at all. And that's when we knew that it was really serious.
So it happened really fast.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it felt fast, but I guess looking back, it was over the span of a couple weeks of throwing up and thinking he had stomach virus with his brother.
It's still pretty quick for like a cancer diagnosis, though.
Yeah.
To just come out of nowhere like that.
And that day, that's when he just couldn't stay awake at all. And I was actually supposed to be in Minneapolis at a hair appointment that day, and she canceled on me. And, if she wouldn't have canceled on me, I don't think I would have taken him that day. So it was weird how things worked out, really. And then, so it moved pretty fast at the children's hospital. I think when they have a kid come in with that high of a white blood cell count, it's a pretty, bad emergency. And he was throwing up at that point. And he immediately went back for a CT scan of his head. Because, whenever the purple and red dots, those were burst blood cells or blood vessels. And so they expected a lot of internal bleeding. So he had over 10 brain bleeds in his head as well. Yeah, and then I remember, I guess at the time, me and his dad were they told us in the pediatrician's office, this is either leukemia or a blood disorder. And we're like, well, that sounds dramatic. We didn't really process it.
He was fine 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And you don't really expect it. But then it was whenever he went to go get a CT scan. A doctor was walking with us down a hallway to go meet with him, and he asked, what our custody agreement was. And that's where I understood how serious it was, because when you have kids going through this treatment, that's one of the first things they ask if, the parents who has the rights to make medical decisions. And so that's when it kind of hit me. And then they put us in the smallest room I have ever seen in my life. It was kind of like a closet. We had to like scoot past each other to even get in. And that's whenever they told us that he had leukemia, and treatment starts abrupt in like less than 24 hours. And I think at the time I was pretty calm, because I knew with cancer that there was lots of options, and I just didn't know I didn't have those options.
Right.
So like I was calm, cool, and collected because I was confident in other ways except the the standard medical treatment.
But they didn't say, here's your options. They said, this is what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they lay it all out, and you can't go against any of it really. But also at the time, knowing his white blood cell count was astronomically high, he had 98% of his blood was cancer. Like I wasn't going against anything at that time. I just wanted it down. I wasn't going to say like, oh, like, hold on, let me go to the store and order some things online.
Yeah.
Like I didn't, or, let me look for a naturopath or something. Yeah. I wasn't even interested in that at the time, because I thought that I could utilize both. And so, what they did is they started leukapheresis to lower that white blood cell. That was the number one emergency we had. So to do that, they had to intubate him and put him to sleep. And they wanted to place central lines as well to be able to do all the blood work, give all the medicine, and to keep him asleep, which I didn't know at the time. They didn't explain that. I thought like he would go to sleep for like a procedure and then wake up. Like I had no idea we were like putting him to sleep.
To stay for an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so he did respond very well to the leukapheresis. That's where they take the blood out of your body, destroy those white blood cells, and then put it back in. And so, at that time, it was, I don't know, probably about 6 a.m. when we started that. This started at maybe 3 p.m. So now, we're at 6 a.m. and he's in the ICU. And I don't think I realized at the time, like, how shocked all the doctors were. That he was still like standing with that high of a blood count and brain bleeds, because at that point it affected the left side of his brain, so you should have been able to visually see that, but we didn't see that until he woke up. That's when he was paralyzed on his right side because of the sedation.
So it wasn't the brain bleed that got him, it was the...
No, and that's what I believe.
Because he was fine when he went to sleep.
Yeah. And they were like, you brought him to us like that. And I was like, I didn't bring him to you, not able to use his right side of his body. But, that's kind of what they stuck to, that he was like that when he got there. So, yeah, something about being put to sleep affected that, which, he essentially had a stroke is what it was, brain bleeds. Mm-hmm. And I think that took a lot of time to compute for me as well. Because
that's what it was.
Yeah, because, he didn't look like he had a stroke. And, that's something you hear in the older population, not for a 4-year-old. Mm-hmm. And so, he woke up and he wasn't able to use that right side of his body. It also affected his vision as well, because he had damaged blood vessels in his brain. So we had, and that's, and when that happens, they don't know if it's ever coming back, if his eye will be fixed, because he had double vision, and then he couldn't use his whole right side of his body. So he would have to do like physical therapy, occupational therapy, stuff like that to try to strengthen that.
So how long was he asleep?
I would say it was probably about 4 days or less. Because then, like, it's kind of hard to say because the waking up process is long. Like, you think that they stop the medicine and he wakes up, but it's actually about a day of waking up and weaning off that medicine. So he would be like really irate and trying to like rip out his IVs and, you know, be upset and then kind of lay back down and relax. But he would, you know, his eyes would stay closed. But yeah, he still remembers to this day when they intubated him. Like,
It's pretty traumatic for
yeah,
him.
he'll talk about it. Like, you know, he felt like he was in outer space and he couldn't see anybody, but he could hear us talking to him. Yeah, so he remembers every second of that.
That is wild. So what treatment did they do after they went in, destroyed the white blood cells? So he was better at that point. And so what was their next plan?
So then they do high-dose steroids to reduce brain inflammation and to treat leukemia. And then I think the one they started with was the Red Devil, is what they called it, which they could
That's
just
the
call it
chemotherapy, right?
Yeah, they could just call it by its real name. You know, they
Yeah.
didn't have to, you know, say all that, I don't think, looking back. Yeah, because it was like bright red, so you're watching like bright red poison, you know, go into your 4-year-old.
And it is the worst from what I've heard as far as
yeah.
side effects. Yeah.
Yep, that's why they call it the Red Devil. Yeah, it is the worst one. That's what we started off with.
Why do you think they jumped to that? With him being so young.
I think there's just no other options.
Yeah.
I think they've stuck to that same treatment plan for 30 years and they haven't deferred from it, which I can see two sides of the story now. At first, I didn't see both sides. You know, testing chemotherapies and, you know, medicine on children, that's obviously scary. But, you know, should it be the same for 30 years? No, because I know that there's parents that are willing to try anything. And I think that is their biggest argument, is like, well, you know, you don't want to test things on children, which makes sense.
But we have children that need it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they also don't want to test any of the alternative things that we know are effective.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But they don't want to look at any of that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Whenever you're doing these studies of things that aren't harmful, you know, it's not a dangerous thing to test because, you know, a lot of these kids, they go through years of treatment. Some of them can relapse 5 times. So it's like at some point you have to try something else.
Right.
But I understand getting the tunnel vision as well of, you know, being scared to try anything, or, you know, a lot of people just don't even know that there's other options.
Right.
And then you have the parents who will leave the country to get other options, which that is what a lot of people who, I shouldn't say a lot, what people don't realize is an option when your kid is diagnosed with cancer. You know, you don't think of up and leaving the country within days.
I probably would. because of them taking, if you don't do chemo, they're going to take your kid.
Yeah.
Here. Like across the board. That's what I'm hearing. Like, so I would definitely go down there and I would probably be scared. We'd probably be diagnosed late because I'd be scared to go.
Yeah.
Get any testing.
Yeah. Knowing what I know now, I definitely would have made that a bigger option, you know?
So, what happened once they started the chemotherapy?
So once they had started the chemotherapy, it was pretty fast in his change of like attitude and smile and his, you know, level of happiness. That goes downhill pretty quickly, which, mind you, he was pretty sick. And, you know, I just remember, and that's the scariest part, is starting all of these new drugs that are for adults. Like, these aren't drugs for children. They're specifically for people who are 20 years older than him.
Right.
You know, and it was, I think the fastest drug you see a difference in is the steroids that they use for most cancer kids. That's why they get the moon face, you know, the big cheeks. And, you know, that makes them irate and starving and inconsolable. And they even told us, like, he's probably gonna pick a parent to be attached to. And I thought that was weird that would be, like, a side effect. But it was definitely true. Like, he wanted me sitting next to him 24/7. And that lasted for years, actually. We kind of just got out of that last year of him being he got very OCD about everything, like what people were doing around him, like his toys. But that's another thing with kids. You notice that they kind of quit playing with toys. They kind of just lay in bed and stare at the ceiling, and they're not interested in doing much.
You think it's like the level of fatigue, like just exhaustion that they have trying to heal?
I think it's fatigue, and then of course like being nauseous. And talking to adults who go through cancer treatment, they talk a lot about the brain fog, the chemo brain. And I think that is like the biggest role in it, is what it does to your brain mentally. Because even grown adults can explain how they were down and depressed or OCD, and they couldn't even explain why.
Yeah, it just kind of takes over.
Yep. And then we would also... So he had IV chemo through his port, and then we would also do spinal taps with intrathecal chemo. And we had to do it even though he didn't have any cancer in his spinal fluid. They still treated that spinal fluid anyways, which was actually my biggest issue with it all. I didn't like poisoning his spinal fluid for no reason, because like at first they told me he was like a miracle that he didn't have any in his spinal fluid, but 98% of it was in his blood. So I was like, well, then why do we have to do spinal taps treating that? Because they use methotrexate, which we had found through chemical warfare. And so that's why I had the hardest time. It's derived from mustard gas. So that's why...
And they give it to everybody that has rheumatoid arthritis. And
Oh, really?
Methotrexate. Yeah, they use it for RA a lot.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that a little bit. I had a friend tell me about that, and it was one of the nurses there. My favorite nurse, his girlfriend, he was talking about how she took methotrexate, trying to make me feel better.
Yeah.
But I was like...
like, that's not helping.
Yeah, we found it by
better.
Poisoning people, so I don't think it'll make me feel better. But, yeah, and then that was kind of my big... And you can't deny anything. You can't deny the steroids, the antibiotics.
So when you questioned anything, did they, like, give you an opportunity for anything alternative, or they just pushed it? Like, nope, this is what's happening.
Just what we do.
Okay.
It's just what we do. It's what we've always done. And I think that's across the board what most people hear.
Yeah.
They don't have anything else to say other than that.
So did he start to get better, or did he start to decline with his treatments?
I would say decline, because, he just sits there. Mm-hmm. And, this is December 16th, so this is right before Christmas. And so we were really looking forward to Christmas, to see him smile and open gifts and all of that. And looking back at the videos, there not a single smile comes across his face. He would say, like, oh, yay, like really monotone and depressed, and that stayed that way for a long time. And he would question, like, he didn't understand why he was sad. He didn't understand why he didn't want to live. Like, I remember one of the times we went home, he told me, like, while we were laying in bed, like, I just want to go out in the woods behind the house and die.
Oh, and he's 4?
4 years old, saying that. So it's like, they can't explain that feeling or understand it or try to find happiness in something else. They will just tell you exactly how they feel, and without a way to fix it, and you can't fix it as a mom either. Yeah. Because you would try to do all the gifts and all that, and that wouldn't, what would make a normal kid happy, it wouldn't change anything.
So at what point did the state get involved?
So we were about a month into treatment, and we were about to start Nelarabine, and he had just gained his hands and right side of his body back within days. he was finally able to use his hands and walk without assistance and climb stairs. And they were doing a spinal tap, and we weren't allowed in the room at that hospital, which was really hard for me. I couldn't stand that. And
he was awake during the procedure?
He was sedated with propofol.
Like conscious sedation?
Okay. Yep. And so, I would like leave my phone in the room and record because, just getting kicked out of a room for something.
That's actually really smart.
I haven't had the strength to listen to those recordings actually, because I'm really scared what would be on them. Even, over 2 years later, I can't listen to them. But I got them just in case.
Just in case you need them, yeah.
Yeah, which going through a court case, I should have listened to them. But, they're just so, doctors are just, it's good that they show up with a smile on their face and laughing and joking, but that's one of the most traumatizing parts as a parent is seeing, all these nurses and doctors around you, like, laughing and smiling. And, like, I remember it'll burn in my brain for the rest of my life, the leukapheresis guy who was there at like 6 a.m. doing that procedure. He was just having the jolliest old time, just laughing and cracking jokes. And you could just see it on the nurses' faces. They were like, oh my gosh, you do not understand. Like,
what is happening?
No. And they would just look at him with disgust. And I was so thankful that, they at least understood that, because that makes it even more traumatizing, when you have people around you who aren't taking it as serious as you think that they should, which they are. They're doing their job, but
yeah,
I didn't appreciate people laughing around me or smiling, and but that's something that they don't really understand as well. But whenever I had denied treatment, they were doing a spinal tap, and they came to talk to me to explain that starting that Nelarabine, he was going to lose the ability to use his hands. So
is that a different chemo?
Yep.
Okay.
It's an IV chemo, and a lot of kids, they can't, it'll cause neuropathy and foot drop. So that's
in everybody? Like that's just part of it?
A high amount. Because some of these kids, it's completely normal not to be able to walk the whole course of treatment. So they can go through 2 or 3 years of treatment in a wheelchair because of these drugs damaging their nerves, which is why they wear like the foot braces as well, because they have a hard time picking up their foot because it affects their nerves so badly. And she told me he was going to lose the ability to use his hands, and I couldn't take it anymore. And that's whenever I was done. And they had known for a long time that I thought differently from them, because his main doctor, I would ask, all these questions about like hyperbaric oxygen chambers, and he'd like look at me like I could tell.
What
the
are you
look on his
talking
face.
about?
Yeah, he was like, well, and that's what was interesting about the chambers is he was like, yeah, we use those, but not for this.
Use them for wound healing. That's really about it in the medical system.
Oh.
Yeah, like when I did home health, like if we had somebody with a chronic wound, they would do hyperbaric. And they may use them for other things. That's my experience with them mostly, until I got into like the holistic world. And then there's like strokes and all kinds of stuff that you can use them,
Yeah, and
he would have greatly benefited from that actually, which is wild. And
I had asked him if we could do it, and he was just like, we don't do that for this. They kind of leave it very...
And you're still in Minnesota at this point?
Yep, okay. At the Minneapolis Children's Hospital.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought I was confident in the doctor, because he was like, one of the best T-cell ALL doctors in the country, and like, a lot of the nurses talked him up, but, he had pretty poor bedside manner, and...
a lot of the good doctors do. Yeah. There's not a whole lot of them, but the good ones that I do know, some of them are jerks, but,
Yeah, it's just like that lack of compassion or understanding or even listening or try to make them feel better. And that's why I was thankful. I was extremely nervous to transfer to OU Health, the OU Children's Hospital, because... at that point I knew what I wanted out of a doctor, and I got super lucky, because the doctor we got transferred to here, I really love her, and she really listens to me, and they'll listen to all my cuckoo theories of what I want and what I want to try.
Yeah.
And
Like,
they're
we're going to give him some warmer.
yeah, like, let's look into shark oil. And they're like, okay, yeah, let's do that. And, I'm thankful because we came from a doctor. That's the doctor we went to trial with in Minnesota, the one, that I couldn't stand to be around.
So when you refused that second chemo, that's when they called in DHS?
Yep. In Minnesota, it's CPS, Child
Okay.
Protective Services. And we had a great social worker, too, up there, which I was so thankful for her as well, because she was like, I understand why you're doing this. Like, your feelings are validated, and which, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. But it was nice to hear.
Yeah.
And she kind of, and the social worker and the doctor, like, they knew all my points that I had made of it being poison, 30-year-old treatments. Like, this is a chemical derived from mustard gas you're injecting into my 4-year-old. Like, of course I have something to say about it.
Of course I have questions.
Yeah.
If I didn't, that's when you should call CPS. When I ask zero questions, then you need to call in backup. Like,
Yep. So they filed medical neglect on me, but I was still, like, going to all appointments. There was, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 appointments where they kept trying to get me to do it, and I'm just like, no, we're just here for an appointment, and we're not doing any of that. And that actually turned out to be the only chemotherapy he was allergic to.
Really?
So, yep. And that's kind of what made it even harder, too. Like, the fact that I knew that he couldn't take that one, and that was the one I denied, and then he ended up being allergic. Yeah,
So they forced it on him?
Yeah.
He ended up having to do it?
Yeah, So it was about a 2-week span. We were supposed to start Nelarabine within like 4 or 5 days, or he would relapse and die.
That's what they told you?
Yeah. They told me a lot. And because
That's a little extreme. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think you can put a time like they're gonna die in 4 days.
Yeah,
if
you
don't do
can tell me
this.
that, and I'll laugh in your face. Like,
Yeah.
you can't scare me into thinking that poison is
Gonna save my son.
gonna save my kid instead of kill him. Yeah. So what we did, we would take him to all the appointments and just not let them do the Nelarabine. And we sat down in a room with the doctor, the social worker, and another nurse, another witness. And he called CPS on me with me sitting right there. And I got to listen to the whole conversation.
He just said she's refusing treatment.
Yeah, so
Because I'm always curious. That's interesting that he did it with you there. So how did that conversation go?
Yeah, and that's what was interesting too. Like, they made it known several times, like, oh, we'll call CPS with you in the room and blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, like, I don't care if I'm there or not. Really,
Yeah.
like, do it. I'm ready to get this started, because I couldn't stand it. Which and I wish I would have. I think my biggest regret out of all of it is I should have transferred to Oklahoma City and then done it. Being in Minnesota, that was a horrible,
Just up and leave.
horrible decision. Yeah. But, at that point, I'm probably 9 months pregnant now, and, we were staying at my mom's house, which was, comfortable for all of us, and I had all my family, and, because I don't understand how people do this without any family around. The whole treatment plan and all the doctor's appointments and all the specialists and all the things you have to keep straight and all the constant medicine. It's really hard. I can't imagine the moms who do it all by themselves. So we sat in that room, and he called CPS, and they kind of just went over the basics. They didn't really, like, gossip or get too deep into it. Just like, what was your address? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And he just kind of, like, laid it out of, he has T-cell ALL. This is what they mainly base calling CPS on is the survival rate of the cancer. So since his was almost 94% survival rate, that's why I got CPS called on me, because he had such a high survival rate. But that's not including, risk of relapse, or how many times you relapse, or, what happens during the treatment. And so then they do an emergency hearing, and that was just a quick, probably about 2 minutes. You walk in, they call the case, and he forces the treatment immediately, says you need to go to the hospital right now to start treatment. And so we left, and we went home to pack and drove to the hospital in the middle of a blizzard to start. So now he had been 2 weeks off of treatment at that point.
Still alive.
Yep. He lived past that 4 days, and I had started taking over doing everything that I know to do. And so he was almost back to baseline, like mentally, happy, playing, jumping, running around with his brother.
This is always the story. Mm-hmm. Once you start the holistic treatment, they start to thrive, and then they just knock them down again.
Oh, yeah. I saw a huge difference. And, the biggest thing that I saw a difference in, I don't know if we can talk about it, but
we can talk about anything.
Okay, yeah. I up in Minnesota, I didn't realize that marijuana was medically legal. So I got him.
So we're actually recording one right after this on full extra cannabis oil and the research on that. So a girl that runs a program is actually coming in to talk about it.
Is it Jamie Bennett?
Yep.
That's my girl. Yeah.
She's gonna be here right after you.
Oh, really? Yep. Oh, I love that. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah. So tell us your experience with it.
Yeah. So oh, that's so exciting. I love her. So what I did was, immediately I had started, which I can talk about it now because I'm not in a case. I immediately, when he was diagnosed, I knew that was my number one option. Mm-hmm. And little did I know it helps people heal from strokes. I had no idea.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, the only reason I know that is I got on stroke Facebook groups and watching adults talk about the difference before and after cannabis use, of, the numbness and tingling gone, them being able to feel their limbs again. And I was like, oh my gosh, it heals strokes too. That was really exciting for me. But one of the best parts of it all was whenever he got the feeling of the right side of his body again, it was in the middle of the night when it happened, and it woke him up, able to use his hands again. And every single doctor and nurse we came across, which would be probably about 6 or 7 in total, they were really confused. Overnight, this child isn't paralyzed anymore. It didn't make sense to them. And, oh my gosh.
And you had started the cannabis?
Yeah. And what was weird, I realized months and months later, I did it at nighttime as well. So while he was asleep, I would just, take a little, half a grain of rice, tiny amount, and put it under his tongue while he was asleep. And then I realized, only because the repeated nurses and doctors who were like, it's weird that he's not paralyzed anymore, and it happened in his sleep. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I was giving him cannabis oil every night while he slept. And then, with his eye having that double vision and damage in his brain, he got his eyesight back as well, which in that 2 weeks, and they expected him to have his eyes affected for about 6 months. So that came quickly as well, healing, yeah. Which was really, really exciting. And because I knew what it was, but I couldn't tell anybody at the time. But the funnest one was, which I guess fun is probably a weird word to use, but it was.
Looking back,
it was just mind-blowing and exciting. And I really understood the power of cannabis oil. We went home. I don't know how long we were home for, but I'd give him his largest dose he had so far. Because we had just gotten out of the hospital. I knew everything that he went through was horrible, and that he needed, more while he could stay at home and sleep. So he came home and he slept about 16 hours, which, is great because of all the healing that happens when he's asleep. And he woke up, and at that time we had 2 queen-size beds pushed together, so me and all the children could just sleep in one bed. Yeah. And he sat up and he scooted out of the bed, which he couldn't do. He couldn't scoot across the bed. And then he jumped down, which he couldn't do, and he ran down 2 flights of stairs. And we're all just looking at him like, what is going on? And then he jumped up on a bar stool. And then I'm just sitting there with my jaw dropped, and my mom looks at me. She's like, what did you do? And I was like, I gave him a lot of marijuana. Because, she's a part of that generation where not a good thing
Oh
to
yeah, my
use.
mom's there too.
Yeah.
They're like, it's a drug.
Uh-huh,
I mean,
yeah.
but so is,
Yeah, it's
methotrexate's a drug too.
yeah,
So.
yeah, methotrexate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's classified with heroin. So a lot of people see it like that, And she was just sitting there. All of our eyes were just huge. And he's just, he doesn't think anything of it. And we're just staring at him like, a miracle, because it was,
So did they actually ever remove him from your custody?
Technically, yes. I was put on a 72-hour hold. And that is when they showed up. I could tell by the social worker, the look on the social worker's face. She looked mortified. And I knew immediately that they were taking him. And so they were like, is your mom here? And no, she's not. And they were like, you need to call here and get her here immediately. So thankfully, my mom was able to quickly leave work and come home, because they were putting him in her custody as the foster parent. So they were...
But they allowed you to stay in the home?
Mm-hmm, yeah, they only put me on a 72-hour hold that carried over to the weekend. Because, I was a danger to him, even though he didn't have any doctor's appointments scheduled, nothing going on. They chose to take him from the only person who knew his medicine schedule, what he needed, and, his safe space, and for essentially no reason, because he didn't have any doctor's appointments. We would just been sitting at home anyways. And so
it's always crazy, because there's so much research and evidence showing the emotional side of cancer. And so the book Radical Remission, I feel like I reference that a lot, where it talks about like the people that have healed themselves, and it's all like mental, emotional, spiritual. Those are the things that all these people tell you is the most important piece. And to remove a parent from the child, and that's their safety net, you're impairing their ability to heal, because their nervous system is now completely disrupted.
Oh, yeah.
And so to me, it's just crazy that we know this evidence. And so I do, like, if they legitimately did have a concern, I feel like the situation that they did with you is probably like a best case scenario. Like, you have someone come in alongside the family, but allow the family to stay, unless they're like actually physically endangering the child. But usually it's just a compliance issue. Why would you remove the child from the parent just because... If you feel like you need to force a decision, but I feel like you should still allow the parent to be there. And that's not always the case. Like, I feel like even though it was like traumatic, I feel like that is a better case than what we hear a lot, where they just remove them completely, no contact.
Oh, yeah. And like, they'll even, hospitalize the child immediately, and then keep the mother out of the hospital.
Yeah.
That is definitely the worst case scenario I've seen. And they're, saying... he needs to stay hospitalized until the treatment's over. Like, these treatments are years long sometimes, and they will do that too.
Yeah.
And that's what I was grateful that they did allow my mom to be the foster mom. But, and then they look at me like, oh, don't you have somewhere to go? And I'm like, I don't live here. Like, so they expected for me to just leave,
go home,
and go to a friend's house or something and stay, or go home. Like, oh, well, you can just go get a hotel. I'm like, I'm not doing
I'm
this.
at my mom's house.
Yeah,
Why would I get a hotel?
yeah. So that was, very frustrating. But
what other alternative methods did you use besides the cannabis oil with him?
It was mainly the cannabis, but I would do like probiotics as well, vitamin C, wormwood. Let's see, what else?
Did you ever do any kind of rife or frequency treatments?
No.
I know Jamie's they do a lot of research on that. So.
Yeah, that's what I was talking to her. She just got a machine not too long ago. I had saw her on one of the Rife Facebook groups. I was like, oh my gosh, did you get one? But no, that's really what I want to do next to keep him in remission and as like a maintenance.
We have one here.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, because that's what I'm like. Of course, the machine. Oh, you were the one who told me about a brand that you really liked.
Yes. Yeah, it's like the GB4000 with MOPA is like the closest to the original, like that Dr. Royal Rife had created. I feel like it's the one of the closest ones. And so in a lot of like the research and cancer healing and stuff like that, that's usually the one that they recommend. I think it's easier too because with the plasma tube, you don't have to like keep your feet on the plates and hang on to something. You can just set it beside the bed, and these people will run them like all night while they're sleeping. And so it's really effective, especially being paired with the cannabis oil. Like there's like they did a whole research paper on it showing like the cancer, the cure rate. It's crazy.
That's what I've seen. Some people just use the E.R.I.C technology for cancer. And I'm like, how easy and non-invasive.
Right? I mean, Royal Ref's original, like he had like an 80-something% cure rate, and that's all that they were using in his original study. And of course they destroyed all of his research and his machines and everything because they were like, we're not having that. This makes us way too much money. Can't be curing cancer.
Yeah, that was actually one of the technologies that I used for trial of other options. And they like asked the doctor, do you know what that is? And he's like, no.
Isn't that wild?
He's
they
a
have
T-cell, highly decorated doctor, and he doesn't know what it is. I'm like, of course he doesn't know what it is.
He wasn't taught it. The Rockefellers are not going to teach you about that in med school. Why would we learn about that?
Yeah, why heal them when you can use them for money? Like,
so at what point did they release him for y'all to be transferred back to Oklahoma?
That was about 9 months into the court case. Yeah, we were held captive for about 9 months in Minnesota. Because then you're just going through, the constant court dates, nothing happening, people showing up for court, not prepared, and...
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Just the same old, And so, yeah, because I had to prepare for trial, we had about a 4-day trial, and I don't know how long into it was probably maybe less than a month in after them calling CPS we went to trial, which was pretty fast. This case moved very quickly because they had never seen a case like this. We were the first case in America my lawyers could find where they called CPS, they took the kid who didn't actively have cancer, he was in remission.
When they took him, he was in remission? Or when they called CPS, he was in remission?
Let me think. He went into remission pretty quickly. Yeah, because I'm thinking they would write down every single day what his blasts were at, which was his leukemia cells. And yeah, he went into remission pretty fast, which is what they expect. So it's probably about the first 4 weeks of treatment. They expect remission. But they didn't expect remission in my child because his white blood cell was 895,000. So that's what also made him a miracle. And I still have the paper. I thought about this as I was going to bed last night. I wish I would have known where it was. I would have brought it. The day I started the cannabis oil, his blasts, his leukemia cells significantly dropped.
You need to send it. We'll put it up.
I'll do that. And that's what... I didn't realize that at first. Looking back at that paper, I was like, oh, that was a big drop right there because they expect a steady decline. I was like, and I looked at the date and I was like, oh, I know why that happened.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of really exciting things with the cannabis oil, and it really changes, and even the doctors notice that they're in better spirits, they eat better. They're more relaxed with all the medical trauma going on around them. And, like, they would even compliment, like, look how good of a kid he is. Look at him just sitting there being good. I'm like, yeah, because he's really happy right now.
He's handling it very well.
Yeah. And they all deserve that, too. They all deserve to go through that and have something specifically that makes them happy and hungry.
Well, as an adult, being in that situation, they're going to prescribe like Xanax or something like that. And so for me, I'm like, would you not rather have something natural that's actually going to accelerate their healing than give them another pharmaceutical that's going to have more side effects and then they're going to need more pills,
Oh, yeah.
And so, so after 9 months, so they went ahead and forced the other chemo on him. And then was it just back and forth to appointments after that? Was he pretty much done?
Yeah, so then we were hospitalized that day that they forced treatment, and that after that first IV infusion, he could no longer walk. And, he tried to stand up and he'd fall to the ground, like he couldn't So I called in the doctor immediately. Like, this kid ran in here and jumped up on the bed, and, we were playing jumping on the bed, and then now he can no longer walk. Like, there's something wrong.
Like, did he have another stroke or?
Yeah, and that's what the doctor, this highly decorated doctor was like, oh, it's just muscle weakness. It was like his muscles weren't weak, an hour ago. And I'm thankful that a physical therapist was actually the one who said he was allergic to it and immediately wanted the dose lowered. So if we would have went along with the expert, the doctor, he would have kept poisoning him with something he was allergic to at a high dose.
How did they determine that he was allergic?
The physical therapist literally just did a quick evaluation of his muscles and having him walk, and said, oh yeah, he's allergic to Nelarabine. We should lower the dose. And
I'm surprised they listened.
I know. And then another doctor, it was a different doctor that day, the one who diagnosed him. And he was the one who lowered the dose after his doctor ignored him and said it was just muscle weakness. But then what they do is they lower the dose and then increase the dose back.
Slowly raise it back up. So how many of those did he need? Or have, not need?
Nelarabine, I think it was like less than a week. It was multiple infusions over the course of those days. I think it was almost a week of infusions of that. So yeah, it's pretty constant where you're, hospitalized. You become more used to living at the hospital than you do at home. Like, when we went home in June after his bone marrow transplant, from June to now is the longest we've gone without being hospitalized for a couple of years now.
So did he have the bone marrow transplant here in Oklahoma?
Yep, we did it here at OU Children's.
Okay.
His 5-year-old brother is the one we got the bone marrow from, who was the match.
Really? How did he handle that at 5 years old?
He did really good, actually. I was terrified, obviously.
So you and Dad, neither one were a match?
We were a match, but they use the siblings first because they are better. And yep, they are a better match to use siblings. So both of his brothers, and that's what they looked at me and they were like, oh yeah, you're lucky because if this doesn't work, your other son is a backup for him. I was like,
oh my gosh. So
I'm happy I'm a good person, or I would do something to you right now.
You got all these
kids. Then stuff like
Yeah.
that sticks in your brain,
So he was 5, and then, so now how old was Keaton at the time?
7.
7. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
a lot. And
Yeah.
then you have 2 kids undergoing procedures at the same time. And
Yeah, and I had to choose which kid I wanted to be with. At first, they probably the maddest I've ever been at. Well, probably the second maddest
They
I've
didn't
ever
have
been.
them in the same room?
No, they his bone marrow treatment plan moved extremely fast. They weren't used to that either. When he relapsed in his spinal fluid, where it had never been before, it was the highest number of leukemia cells they've ever seen in his spinal fluid.
And it wasn't there at all before?
No, it wasn't, which is why I didn't want this treatment, because it was never in the spinal fluid, and yet we were poisoning the spinal fluid. And so that moved fast, and they tell you, you're going to be hospitalized for 100 days.
Oh, gosh.
And, well, I shouldn't say hospitalized. You have to live around the hospital for 100 days. So we spent the first month at the hospital, and then the rest of the 87 days at the Toby Keith Kids Corral in Oklahoma City, which is a home for cancer families. If it wasn't for the Toby Keith Foundation, we would have lived in a hotel for 87 days.
That is wild.
So, yeah, we... And they love it there too, so that makes a huge difference. So he did the collection of the bone marrow for his brother, and where they screw into his hip to collect it. It wasn't the IV, because he's a kid. They use more of the IVs for adults, and then you have to do like shots to build up your blood and stuff like that. And he took it well. The only thing, whenever he woke up from sedation, he was having a hard time breathing. But other than that, he really only felt pain about twice. And he acted like nothing happened. Like, they had told me like, oh, kids take these procedures so well, and I was like, yeah, don't invalidate, what a kid's about to go through. But he did great. He went to the Toby Keith's Kids Corral after and was playing, jumping off the toys.
Same day?
Yeah,
Oh
the
my
same
gosh.
day he had that bone marrow harvest. He was
Were you like following him around?
yeah, yeah, and yeah, because then I was having to take turns because they told me at first, like after Kyler's procedure, he would go up to Keaton's room and you guys would be together because I was really worried about pain control. I wanted Kyler at the hospital for pain control specifically, and that's what they made me think at first. And then right before the bone marrow transplant, they wanted me to sign a bunch of paperwork and sign that you have to write down what guests you are going to have. You get 4 guests. 2 of the guests are parents. And so you get to write down 2 other people and sign it, that those are the only ones allowed in the bone marrow transplant unit. And so, you're pretty much signing up to not be around your kids for about a month, unless you, take a break, which, Keaton never really wanted me away. So
how many kids do you have total?
I have 3 boys.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I was actually like breastfeeding at the time. So I kind of just had to stop that one day and just give him to my family and their dad for me and Keaton to just live in the hospital. And then, explaining that to a 5-year-old of what he's about to do. And I mean, it was sweet because Keaton is so smart and so aware. So he kind of helped me explain that. Even though Keaton really didn't know a lot what was happening, when he relapsed, all I told him was like, now we got to go to the doctor and try different medicines. So he didn't know why he was being taken out of school or going to live at the hospital. He just knew we were trying different medicines.
Did he have any symptoms when he relapsed or just blood work that showed?
No symptoms at all. It was a spinal tap that found it. Which we were used to, because throughout the whole course of treatment, you have to do those spinal taps to treat the spinal fluid. So it was just like any other day. I had actually got to the point where I quit checking the results of the spinal tap. Mind you, we're like 2 years in.
Because it's just so normal for you. Just
yeah,
to
it
go
became
in, get
normal,
it done.
and within the past couple months, I had become more positive as well about it all. Like, because going through the court case and knowing what's wrong and what's right and still having to do the wrong thing, that tortured me for a long time. But then I finally became positive, and we were 6 months away from end of treatment. So
when you relapsed?
Yeah, so it took me that long to finally be in a better mood about it, and not so, because I used to just walk into the hospital and just feel like they were torturing him and he was going to die any second, worried he was going to die in his sleep. And finally one day everything just switched to where I just wanted to be positive for him, which he didn't hear the negative things.
Right.
But it made it a lot easier to, and I always tried from the beginning as well of, even though I knew it was poison, I knew mindset and how you talk about things can change things. So, like I would try to look at, whenever they're injecting it, like try to look at it as like gold in the IV and like a beautiful thing and, healing and all that. But I knew deep down, and, and then I try to really like instill that in him as well. But finally those last couple months, I kind of just let it all go and was like, oh, we got to move on from this. And then we had a spinal tap, and I was on the way home from Oklahoma City, and I'm about, 45 minutes from home, and I look at the results I saw that there was over 2,000 cells in his spinal fluid, and usually there's 0. So that's how I knew, because instead of it saying 0, it said 2,000. And so then I spent the rest of the afternoon trying to get a hold of a doctor.
No one called you?
Yeah, it took hours. It took hours to get a doctor on the phone. So then I'm kind of, just distraught and spiraling. Like I couldn't focus. Like my kids would be talking to me and I couldn't even hear what they were saying because I was just, you're just kind of like out of it. And then, they finally told me over the phone that he had relapsed in his spinal fluid. And then that's when, everything moved quickly after that. So then they wanted us there at like 6 a.m. the next day, 7 a.m., but we live over an hour and a half away. And they want to start all the testing because they want to do the cheek swabs to see the matches for the bone marrow. And then he had to do a bone marrow aspiration to see if it had gotten into his blood, because if it got into his blood, it would be harder to treat. And so we sent that off to the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, and it came back positive that it was in his blood, but it was a low amount. They were expecting an extremely high amount, but they kind of told me, his doctor that I loved, that, I've never seen this much leukemia cells in the spinal fluid. I don't know what to do, and I'm going to call around the country to figure out what we're supposed to do about this. So that was terrifying too, because leukemia is one of the most researched cancers in kids, and it has one of the highest success rates as well. But I didn't know anything after the treatment for relapses, how well that was known. Like, I was already from the beginning, I was on relapse Facebook groups, so I knew a lot of the symptoms, I knew what to look for, and, he didn't have any of that. And all I knew was, they did even more horrible things after a relapse. That's about all I knew. Because I had actually asked when he was first diagnosed, I was like, can he not get like a bone marrow transplant and just be done with it?
To prevent this, yeah.
Yeah, and they were like, oh no, like you want to use that as the next option. And so we were at the doctor constantly, about every day, going through all the testing, trying to come up with a treatment plan. So at that time, I'm calling and emailing doctors all over the country, trying to find what to do, because, there's also like stem cells that you can do. And actually, he didn't even qualify for any of the trials that were going on.
Because he had already had treatment?
I think the trials with cancer treatment, they are super specific, and if you don't follow that criteria, if you don't fall into that, then they just,
well, and a lot of them don't allow you to do anything prior, because then it interferes with like how efficient their medication is or their treatment. So the fact that he had 2 previous, I don't know if that played a role or not, but
yeah. And I think they like to follow a certain steps of what to do, bone marrow transplant, stem cell transplant, and then it's kind of like clinical trials after that.
So after the bone marrow transplant, he's been good?
Yep, he's been in remission since March when he had the transplant, and he did better than most kids through the bone marrow transplant, which also I credit to the marijuana. And we just go once a month for blood work, and just within a couple of weeks he got put on 1 medication a day, and everything has been pretty good since, but every day is different. In my mind, I like to think that it was the end all, but we've gotten really lucky that, the bone marrow transplant went smoother than expected. But at the same time, he did chemotherapy and radiation. So that is, damages that we haven't even seen yet. And I think the hardest part about bone marrow transplants is that they sterilize your child. So what we did as well, he was the first kid at OU Children's to have a testicular biopsy and harvest some cells to try to, allow him to have children in the future. And so, they know that I looked at that way different than most parents, and they wanted to be sure that I actually wanted to do that. And I'm like, yeah, like you need to offer this to every child that has to go through this, because like with girls, they, save some of your eggs to try to, in hopes that you can have kids. But, that's an out-of-pocket cost as well.
So they make you pay for that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to pay for the storage of it.
Gotcha.
And then I don't even know the cost, down the road.
Of the procedure too, yeah.
So that's kind of what made it even harder was knowing that I was sterilizing him and then had to do another surgery on him just to try to get him to have kids in the future. But I knew that that was an extra step that I wanted to take. And I was thankful I knew about that because they just let parents walk into bone marrow transplants.
So you had to bring that up?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't.
Yeah, I was the first. Whenever they told me he relapsed, I had been on relapse Facebook groups. So I had told her at that first phone call, like, we need to get this process going because we will do this. I want it, and it's, it's going to happen. I don't care where I have to go to do it. We can either do it in Oklahoma or I can go travel out of the state, but that's happening before
Right.
we start this ordeal.
So looking back, what would you have done? Would you have done anything differently?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Oh,
yeah, I figured. But, like, would you have initially started treatment there? Or would you have just been like, we're leaving? And
From the very beginning, 1,000%, I should have left Minnesota. Looking back now, and then, seeing that medical kidnapping case of that cancer kid that just happened a couple weeks ago, I think it was the governor who immediately told DHS to stand down, and that was really hard for me. Like, of course, that's, something that I love to see, but that was hard knowing that I had felt that way for all these years, that I should have transferred it to Oklahoma, and then seeing, like, that immediate, the governor step in, and because
DHS did not follow his orders. He's still removed from the mom.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I have never seen
They
anything
have
after
court
that.
I think they have court on Monday.
Oh.
Yeah. So
See, I didn't know if the mom was allowed at the hospital because I went to OU Children's right days after that happened. And I'm like, I really want to go on that wing and see if I can find her, but I didn't.
You should have.
Yeah, I know.
She's been very open about it, speaking, just she can't talk publicly because it's like your case. Like now you can speak because it's over, but yeah. And we just had another, I mean, I feel like it happens here. I feel like you got lucky because the cases here, I don't know if they would have let you stay with him because that's their biggest goal was like keeping you away. Especially in the Mooney case, that's what's happening with him.
Oh,
so
really?
Their biggest issue is making sure that she's not with him.
Oh.
Yeah, but she's also the chair for the Moms for Liberty.
Oh,
Makes it a little interesting.
That throws in an extra layer.
Yeah. So what would you have done differently besides coming here? Would you still have gone with the traditional treatment because of the survival rate being so high?
No, I don't know. It's so hard to say with him having 98% of cancer in his blood.
I always say I know the decision I would make for myself, but when it comes to my kids, I don't know what I would do because it's totally different.
Yeah.
Like for me, I'd be like, we're going to Mexico.
Yeah. And I've changed a lot over the years too. So I'm more like calm and level-headed about it, and I can speak with more grace. But I think at the time, I think I would have immediately left the country.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, like who would feel comfortable But at the same time, I don't think I would have felt comfortable, taking the IVs out of my son and carrying him out of the hospital with 98% cancer. Like, would I really have done that? I don't, like, but then it's like a month into treatment, he's in remission. So would have I felt more comfortable? And then you got to convince your significant other to up and leave the country and go find a new job in a different country. Like, so that doesn't even compute to a lot of men either. So
they're like, we're going where?
Yeah. And I think, but also what's changed a lot too is I have more resources and more people that I fully trust with my son's life in a lot of ways as well. And I think if I would have met some of those people earlier on, I think that would have changed the outcome of it as well. Yeah. And, everything nowadays, it's just, it's all about money, and, that's what limits to you of what, is possible for healing as well. Because, I would look at this like long list of everything I want, and I'm like, oh wow, that's like, I don't know, $20,000. Like,
yeah, I think it's to go one of the centers in Mexico to go for like 7 to 10 days. It's like $30,000. So it's just so out of reach for a lot of people. So that's I have a friend who's working on starting something similar here.
Oh, really?
To make it more available for people and hopefully, more cost effective for people. But those treatments are just expensive. The facilities are expensive. The doctors that have to be there to sign orders are expensive. And you just get into this it's money, but then you look at the bill from the hospital.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it wasn't that expensive. Because I do ozone and vitamin C, and I know how much it costs to do those. And then even from the centers in Mexico, you look at those bills, and I'm like, it does not cost $2,500 to do, it's crazy how much. And I know that they have to pay the doctors and nurses in the facilities and stuff. But again, it's just a lot of people, it's heartbreaking to know there's so many people that healing is a monetary thing for them. They literally can't because they don't have the money to go. And so that's where I think it's hard. But insurance will cover so many things that aren't necessary. We're paying for sex changes for children.
Yeah.
But we can't pay for an alternative cancer treatment that has a really good success rate. So that's where I feel like there's so many places in the system that are broken. But I can't wait for that center to be here and be more available. And he actually has a foundation too that will be separate to help cover financially to help people that won't be able to afford it. So I think it's just going to be a game changer for Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's we like to think we live in the greatest country, yet people leave the country to get cancer treatment when cancer is so prevalent here.
This is such a common theme.
That doesn't make sense.
I'm like, everybody's like, don't trust the government.
Yeah.
That should have been the name of the podcast. Don't trust the government.
Yeah. We'd have been shut down. They'd be coming in that door real quick. Yeah,
put you at the top of the watch list.
Yeah, which that's how I felt whenever we were going through that. I was just so paranoid because you see CPS busting down people's door at night and snatching children in the middle of the night. That's not a movie. That's real life. That happens. And I remember just the paranoia knowing that I'm going against a hospital.
Sleeping in bed with your arm over him every night.
Yeah, I would, because I felt like they were going to bust down that door and take him from me every night. And then even being in the hospital, I knew all of the doctors and nurses knew who I was, because I was a mom who denied treatment and had CPS watching, so I'm sure that was talked about a lot.
Yeah, every time you walk in, they're like, that's her.
Yeah, because it definitely changed the attitude of people whenever they knew that I was just so against it. And I'm sure, that's hard for them as well, because they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They know it's poison. They know there's no other options, and they just, do what they're told. But, at the end of the day, I really would like to believe that things are changing and people are more aware of these things that are happening. And, even here in Oklahoma a couple weeks ago, I couldn't believe seeing that on my Facebook, that a kid was getting medically kidnapped, and it was, causing such an upright. The comments were way more positive here, but in Minnesota, nobody liked that I was, trying to murder my child. And
it's wild.
Yeah.
Because they don't know the whole story.
Yeah, but there was a huge difference. Yeah, and it doesn't help when you're on the news and in the newspapers and they put false things in there. The news and newspapers would interview me, but they wouldn't tell the full story. And they would get things wrong. And that's what I couldn't stand. Because even CPS, there was not one court date in 2 years where CPS didn't lie.
That's been a common theme too. And yours was in Minnesota. But in Oklahoma, all the parents that I'm talking to are like, DHS is lying.
Oh, yeah.
On the stand, in their documents.
Yeah, they just make things up. They don't even ask. And I couldn't stand that. And I got lucky too when we transferred here to Oklahoma. I liked our DHS worker and I liked our supervisor. They were on my side. They completely understood why I did what I did. They felt sorry. They apologized that they had to come every month, because I went to court every month. I dealt with Minnesota CPS. I dealt with a guardian ad litem, and I dealt with Oklahoma CPS every month.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So we had our guardian ad litem going against us. We had Minnesota DHS going against us, but we had Oklahoma CPS for us. But at the same time, we also had a judge, Elizabeth Strand, who made it known that we were good parents and made it known that we loved him and was trying to do what's best for him. She just couldn't, follow along with us.
Yeah. So for any parents that run into this unfortunate diagnosis with their child, like what is your recommendation for them to like steps to take or things to watch out for or how to navigate the system?
I think immediately you need to find a tribe of moms who are looking into the alternative therapies, will help you walk you through it, and providers as well. And I think immediately those providers need to be brought into the treatment plan, because we went to see, whenever I denied treatment, I went to a naturopath there in Minnesota, and we did the list of things, like what else, the omega-3s, that was a big one in cancer patients, and let me think what else she would do.
She was just giving you like a list of like the holistic things to do alongside the treatments.
Yeah, there was like a pro-berry extract, and and it's easy things without having a lot of knowledge of this world to find and do. And she actually, I'm thankful for her, because she got on the stand for me as well. So when we went to trial, you have to find experts, and my attorneys looked all over the country and they couldn't find anybody. And I was lucky that they finally talked that naturopath into going on the stand for me. And then I had a Harvard cannabis doctor as well that I knew from people in the cannabis world who would send full extract cannabis oil to cancer kids. So I had Dr. Uma Donabalin that flown to Minnesota to get on the stand as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they tried really hard to not get her on the stand. And yeah, she did great. She gave lots of good info, but at the end of the day, she's a doctor and she will not risk losing her medical license to say that he's safe not proceeding with treatment. So everything in her testimony was great, other than she did suggest to go with the treatment. But it was...
She flew all the way in just to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. God. And I kind of expected...
Yeah.
I expected it, but I think personally, I should have had a discussion with her of that specific question.
Yeah.
And because I think if I was in that position now, I'm not a doctor, but I think I would say, I don't know. It's not my kid.
Yeah.
You can answer that.
So recommendation is to leave the country.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you can just say, not my kid, not my decision.
Yeah.
And so it was one of the other exciting things is, she was discussing the endocannabinoid system and how it works with all of our organs and the CB1 and CB2 receptors. And Keaton's doctor is sitting there listening to this. And we get out of court and, the judge is watching and I'm, leaving and the doctor's right there. And so I shake his hand and oh, thanks for coming. And, try to be nice in front of the judge. Yeah. And he was like, wow, that was really amazing. And I was like, what? And he was like, I he was just shocked. I can't believe that. That was so fascinating. I was like, yeah, I know. I already know these things.
That's why she's here.
Yeah, welcome to the club. Yeah. And so that was kind of validating that he finally saw what I had been talking about, why I denied treatment. He saw it from a Harvard doctor, so he believed it from her, not me.
Just not you.
Yeah.
He didn't believe it by watching how well your kid did through treatment because of what you were doing at home.
Yeah.
Too, so.
And then, after the court case was going, after he had his medical card, I made sure, to bring up cannabis more because they need to know about it.
Yeah.
And can they suggest it? No. But
they didn't tell people about it.
Yeah, they don't even do that because there's Marinol, the synthetic version of cannabis.
It's not the same.
Yeah, which isn't the same but it's a good stepping stone for the parents who want to see results fast, and still do it the right way, the doctor way. And
yeah,
because I think I had put him on Marinol because it's, an appetite stimulant, and he needed that going through the bone marrow transplant. And I just want it to be more known for these kids. They should be taking this. Did I want him on the pharmaceutical version? No, not really. But I wanted them to have another patient that was on it so they could see the difference that it made.
Yeah.
And it did, because after his bone marrow transplant, he went 2 weeks without eating.
Oh my gosh. And
he didn't have a single bite for 2 weeks, which is common. These kids can go months without eating. Months. Because they do either the G-tube feedings, the feeding tubes in their nose, and then they do TPN, which is the IV fluids nutrition. And that first day that he started Marinol, that was the first day he ate. This was like 2 doses in. So that's this is awesome. Like half a day on, a pharmaceutical marijuana. And they were just like mind blown, like, what? He's hungry? I'm like, yeah, we gave him Marinol. That's why he's hungry.
Like, the point of it.
Yeah. So that was exciting, which the only thing he would eat at first was like Sour Patch Kids. But I'm like, oh, thank you, God, for Sour Patch Kids. Which they were like, yeah, it's actually like, it's really common when they get a bone marrow transplant, all they can taste is the sour candy. Mm-hmm. So they might have been the one to suggest me the sour candy, and that was it. That's like all he would eat for those first couple days was really sour candy.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was. I'll always look at Sour Patch Kids a little bit differently. They were my saving grace. 'Cause and that's what gave me a lot of grace as well is, whenever your kid's diagnosed or you come across other kids, like, you want to give moms all these suggestions, but you also know that they will do like anything that actually like
works.
Yeah. And I think that's what changed a lot as well for me, because when he was first diagnosed, I would just spend hours and so much energy and time just trying to talk to these parents and, tell them to try other things. And it always, like, so many kids died, me trying to save them with the knowledge I knew, the people I knew. And I think that's kind of whenever I stepped back, like, that it's hard when you're living through that situation to even see anything around you, let alone listen to it, and then, spend money on it. Lots of cancer families, they go bankrupt. They lose their house, they lose their car, they lose their jobs.
Because you can't work either.
No, it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible with the amount of hospitalizations and doctor's appointments. I don't know.
There's no way. Yeah.
I don't know how people do it.
So, just wrapping things up, is there anything else that you want to leave for people?
Yeah, I think, when your kid gets diagnosed with cancer, I think your biggest tool is literally your phone. I learned so much, and I've met so many incredible, amazing people, you included. I remember whenever I first started messaging you, and you just start sending me these lists of things to do. And
I'm like, here's everything that's in my brain.
Yes, and it just, like, I remember crying because I'm so thankful for all the complete strangers who genuinely care about your kid. And it's just like, I know that there is so many, like, naturopaths and practitioners out there that, like, I know I should be paying for these services, and you're just giving them to me for free because you don't want my kid to die and you don't want my kid to suffer. And there's so many people in the country and even out of the country. Like, I've talked to doctors in Iraq, like naturopaths in Iraq.
That's awesome.
When this was going on, and they were like, and that's what was interesting about that conversation was, because we're trying to find someone to get on the stand for me. And they were like, oh, this is happening in America? And I was like, yes. They were like, that's like the land of the free. And I'm like, I know.
Wild,
They're
right?
like, wow, in Iraq, we don't take your child for that. You're allowed to try other things. And what they try are those, what are they, like sea salt salts or cell salts? Cell salts. Those little tiny, tiny beads of
homeopathy.
Homeopathy. That's their number one defense in leukemia.
So that was the number one in
Iraq.
medicine until the Rockefellers got involved. It was homeopathy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so I was
very
like,
effective.
wow, look at this. Like the things that we think about Iraq as Americans. And I have an Iraq doctor on the phone telling me like, oh my gosh, that happens in America. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Like, and that's when I kind of realized, you know, this country, how the medical system works. And
all for profit.
yeah, it's you know, our first hospital bill was $500,000 for 30 days.
Oh my gosh.
And you know, we still had another 2 years to go after that $500,000. And so, and then, you know, the cost of fighting it with CPS, and you know, that's put in place for a reason to be so expensive. But I think getting off subject, I do that. And I think that's the number one thing, is to really use your resources. And I don't care how stupid it sounds, like get on Facebook. It will be your number one resource.
The groups.
For everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a group for everything.
Yeah. And you're in touch with thousands of people who are passionate about that one thing, you know, whether it's like, you know, vitamin C or a probiotics group or a mushrooms group. That was a big one too. And the non-psychedelic kind. And,
right.
And, you know, you're in touch with thousands of people who, some of them have spent years studying this. And that's what I love about those Facebook groups, is you have people who are super passionate about it, who will walk you through everything, that you can text or call. And I think that's the most important thing, is to find those resources. And then if that's hard for you, get on TikTok and type it in and watch videos on it, you know?
Right.
And
social media categorizes everything now.
Yeah.
So you can just search it.
Yeah. And we live in a world where it's so much easier to get information. It's easy, but it's hard at the same time, because you don't know what's real and what's not.
Right.
But when you're going through that, you know, you'll do anything. So it doesn't really matter, you know, what you come across. Most people will try it. And then to spread that information, you know, I think when my child was diagnosed, I think I should have been more vocal about how the process really worked, and, you know, what it did to the whole family and what all it entails, because it's insane how it actually works. And, you know, you're never home, and, you know, the costs. I wish I would have been way more vocal about that. But, you know, the number one thing is to know that you have a whole team of people behind you that will help change the trajectory of your child's cancer battle. And I don't care how simple it sounds to use like high dose vitamin C or probiotics, it makes a difference.
Oh yeah, we do high dose vitamin C a lot.
It really does. And like, even, you know, questioning what medicines the doctor put them on. Like, I refuse Miralax. You know, we have a long list of things that we can use other than Miralax.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's just those simple things like that make a difference. But of course, you know, the best thing I suggest is to put them on cannabis oil immediately, or even CBD. A lot of people see a huge difference with CBD.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll keep in contact and get an update from you.
Oh, so. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. I love anyone who wants to listen to it. So
yeah, I think it's important to keep sharing a story and giving people guidance, so when, God forbid, somebody runs into this, that they'll be able to use his story.
Yep. So. And that's especially with the court system, is they need more stories like this. God forbid, it's horrible. But, like, you know, coming across us being the first case in America like that, like, there's no way that we were the first ones.
Right.
You just have to have the money for attorneys to do it, which is wrong.
Right. Well, hopefully we can raise awareness so this doesn't continue to happen.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.